Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Kahlil Gibran's Prophet, and we are up to self-knowledge. So we're going to start with self-knowledge. We're going to have two readings, and then everybody is welcome to comment on anything that speaks to them in this particular piece. We're going to start. If you would like to volunteer to read, go ahead and type up R in the chat. And whenever you're ready to comment on it, put an exclamation mark. So we're going to start with Allison, followed by Marissa for the reading. Allison, give me just a second. Hold on. Go ahead, Allison.
And a man said, "Speak to us of self-knowledge." And he answered, saying, "Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights, and your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. You would know in words that which you have always known in thought. You would touch with your fingers the naked body of your dreams, and it is well you should. The hidden wellspring of your soul must needs rise and run murmuring to the sea, and the treasure of your infinite depths would be revealed to your eyes. But let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure, and seek not the depths of your knowledge with staff or sounding line. For self is a sea boundless and measureless. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather I have found a truth. Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path. For the soul walks upon all paths, and the soul walks not upon a line, neither does it grow like a reed. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals.
All right, second reading on self-knowledge. Oops. And a man said, "Speak to us of self-knowledge." And he answered, saying, "Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights, but your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. You would know in words that which you have always known in thought. You would touch with your fingers the naked body of your dreams. And it is well you should. The hidden wellspring of your soul must needs rise and run, murmuring to the sea. And the treasure of your infinite depths would be revealed to your eyes. But let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure, and seek not the depths of your knowledge with staff or sounding line. For self is a sea, boundless and measureless. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth. Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path. For the soul walks upon all paths. The soul walks not upon a line, neither does it grow like a reed. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals.
Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Allison. If you'd like to comment on this, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. We're going to start with Marissa. Marissa, go ahead.
It's interesting. I found myself kind of almost shocked to see the mention of soul when talking about self-knowledge. But I guess upon some reflection, it makes sense that it might be there. I really, really like the lines where we're told to not say that we found the truth, but that we found a truth, because it speaks to me about, the idea of, the value of multiple perspectives and the idea that there's always more than one story for every scenario, for every situation. And as I do believe that, we do a greater service or honor to people by, embracing the fact that there's more than one story or perspective. That line really speaks to me. The line of saying, "Say not, I have found the truth, but rather I have found a truth." Um, another fascinating thing is the idea of the it's the idea of finding or meeting up with a soul, but he uses the soul instead of a soul when talking about finding one walking your path. So that kind of gives me pause as well. The idea that he's not considering that there is a single soul living within you, but that there's this, ephemeral soul that you're going to run across as you're walking your meaningful path. And he's saying the soul. So maybe the implication is that there's more than one soul, but he's saying that it's walking all the paths. So it also seems to imply that a soul or the soul can kind of be in many places at once, or perhaps it's a matter of the idea that if we embrace the idea of soul as consciousness, then it stands to reason that the soul doesn't walk in a line, and that it's more unfolding, because as we develop ourselves and our consciousness, we too unfold and unfurl, and we're going to encounter ourselves, as it were, in all the paths, whether it's to the detriment or to the good. So I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's kind of what it's bringing up for me. And it just makes me want to kind of ponder that a little bit deeper.
Thank you, Maritza. Next up is Richard, followed by Allison. Richard.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this session. I've been connected to Gibran's work for many years, but I haven't really come back to it in recent times. But this reading didn't really strike me until the end or near the end, and it really is connected to what Marissa was talking about as well, about not finding the truth, but a truth. That talks to me as a flowing, fluxing kind of truth that is not static. It's not something that is forever. And in that sense, it's not absolute. The other that really struck me was the very last line, again, referring to the idea of the soul unfolding like a lotus of countless petals. But the concept of unfolding struck me right away because of my readings in connection with David Boehm's work and his interest in the whole idea of unfolding and enfolding. And I've associated that with being able to unfold oneself out into as much complexity as robustness as you want, but as you face perhaps times when you're overwhelmed or it's too much, you can enfold back to a safer place. And so life in that sense is an unfolding and enfolding sort of dynamic. It's interesting that's what jumped out at me, is the connection between his thoughts and the messages I get from reading Boehm's idea of dialogue and unfolding and enfolding of oneself.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for bringing in Bohm and the dialogue. It's really, really valuable. Thank you. Next up is Allison. Go ahead, Allison. My apologies.
Oh, okay, there was, okay. Yeah, I was really struck by the last line when it says this, the soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals. It's such a beautiful image, it really is. But I also like that because I feel like sometimes you can know somebody for years and years and years and never really know them, or you know them, but you're always uncovering new things about them. And, sometimes it's interesting talking to someone who's really very elderly and you've known them your whole life, and then you still discover new things about them that you hadn't expected to find. But it's also true with knowing yourself. And it makes me think of my absolute favorite quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, when she says that a woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until you put her in hot water. And so sometimes, we think we know ourselves, but then when we're in very difficult situations, we discover other things about us, and we find that we can do things that we never thought that we could do, that we're capable of doing. So, that's just one thing I really enjoyed about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. All right, folks, let's go to anybody else wants to comment. You can go ahead. Maritza.
Can I make one more comment? Yes, I wanted to chime in on Richard's idea of, he brought in the folding and unfolding of David Bohm. And I think that's fascinating. I really like considering that in this space, the idea of how that could work for us, because David Bohm talks about dialogue, and it's the idea of kind of discussing something without the judgment of making a pronunciation in either direction. So we're not trying to debate, we're not trying to solve the solution, we're just looking at it from several angles. And that, again, that brings to mind to me the idea of it's kind of almost a, if we remember that the poem is called Self-Knowledge, that, so it's Self-Knowledge is the poem that we're talking about right now. And it's interesting to think of it from a folding and unfolding, because that's almost like that's the action that is a requirement for self-knowledge. And I think it's just so cool that you get such a very serviceable action pattern. It's wrapped up in the beautiful, beautiful imagery that Allison just pointed out for us. That last line, she's right. It's just absolute poetry and just art, that last line, but it's the exact same concept. It's saying that this path towards self-knowledge requires an iterative process. You're going to fold, you're going to unfold. And so I liked that parallel there. So thank you, Richard, for pointing that out and bringing David Bohm into it.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next one. Maritza, if you could go ahead and share the screen, and would like some volunteers to read. Go ahead, don't be shy. Go ahead and type R if you'd like to read.
I can read it.
Go ahead.
Then said a teacher, speak to us of teaching. And he said, no man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his loveliness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. The astronomer may speak to you of his understanding of space, but he cannot give you his understanding. The musician may sing to you of the rhythm which is in all space, but he cannot give you the ear which arrests the rhythm, nor the voice that echoes it. And he who is versed in the science of numbers can tell of the regions of weight and measure, but he cannot conduct you thither. For the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. And even as each one of you stands alone in God's knowledge, so much each one of you be alone in his knowledge of God and in his understanding of the earth.
Thank you. Thank you, Nico. Let me go ahead. Okay, the next up is going to be Dina. Dina, go ahead.
Can I unmute? Okay. Hold on a minute. I can't see. Then said a teacher, speak to us of teaching. And he said, no man can reveal to you aught, but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. The astronomer may speak to you of his understanding of space, but he cannot give you his understanding. The musician may sing to you of the rhythm which is in all space, but he cannot give you the ear which arrests the rhythm, nor the voice that echoes it. And he who is versed in the science of numbers can tell of the regions of weight and measure, but he cannot conduct you thither. For the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. And even as each one of you stands alone in God's knowledge, so must each one of you be alone in his knowledge of God and in his understanding of the earth.
Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Would love to hear everybody's comments on this. Let's start with Yulia. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to comment. Yulia.
Hey, two things. One, when I was a teacher, I always thought that teaching should be a reflexive verb because it's really something you do to yourself. And there's really no way anyone else can do it for you. And the other point is he says, what does he say about how no man can, for the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. It's very true, and it makes me kind of sad because I'm always reading, right? Trying to think that, you know, the wisdom of all of these great authors is going to somehow teach me something. But it's really true that, you know, it really has to be something that you do to yourself and find out for yourself. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yulia. Thank you. Next up is Richard.
Yes, the line that jumped out at me was, if he is indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own. That immediately connected me to Socratic questioning. And it connected me to the art of facilitative learning or teaching, I guess. And that the best sort of teaching kind of environment is when you're facilitating the discovery in the learning through the person's own learning, which really another way of saying that the teacher does not get out in front of the individual and try and pull them through to some kind of solution, nor does the teacher get behind and try and push you to a particular solution, which is often in the making of their own rightness about what should be learned. So that was the line that really came out to me, touching on Socratic learning or questioning, and the idea of facilitative learning or teaching, especially the teaching part.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. I mean, this is such an amazing piece. Next up is Maritza.
I find it to be just so amazing that this beautiful view of teaching exists. I think that teachers probably get it almost instinctively, but some of us have to be reminded of this. Like for me, the line that just really strikes me is where he speaks of, the teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. And that to me brings to mind the fact that, we can't, like make somebody learn something. They have to want to learn it themselves. And, I've long postulated, and we've postulated here together as a group, the fact that the best way to, impart knowledge or to get an idea to be propelled into the world is by you doing you and you following that and just doing it so fiercely and shining so brightly that you entice others to do it too. And so that's what I'm hearing here, where he's saying he's not given of his wisdom, he's given of his faith and his lovingness. And I imagine that that's the key to the really exceptional teachers. Like, in our lives, we encounter so many teachers, but there's invariably just the small subset of the ones that make the impact. And I'm thinking perhaps it's the idea of, they're not just trying to shove, things at you to memorize by rote. I mean, unfortunately, in some places they have to do that too, but it's the faith, the lovingness, that them shining so brightly in their belief of what it is that they're showing you, that you yourself decide to pick up the mantle and learn it. And then, so that's why that line really speaks to me.
Wow. This is such a beautiful topic. I think this view, I mean, the base of this is a very different view of human beings. You're saying that human beings are independent beings with their own soul and something inside them which is actually responsible for creating themselves. So, man is a being of self-made soul. It can't be sculpted from outside. It can only be sculpted from inside. And so then what can a teacher do? So let's keep aside the notion of teacher. What can one human being do for another? Right? I mean, you can provide inspiration. You can show what you can do, and people can look at it and people can pick up what they can. So this is the same of, you say, showing your loving, your faith, basically, Montessori system, is one that I'm familiar with. And Montessori starts with a view of the child, which is radically different from what is there in most schools. she holds that a child is an independent being, capable of learning on her own. And all you can do is to provide the right environment and kind of loving support when as needed. But the primary movement is coming from inside. And I see that in every sentence here, expressed beautifully. So next up is Allison.
It's kind of interesting with teaching, because it goes through these different phases. And I think probably when we were all kids, it was really big on rote memorization. But then it went through a whole phase of real diversification. And the whole idea is that you're really supposed to teach kids according to where they are, and that you take them from where they are and help them move along at their path to where they need to be. But it's not going to be at the same place. They're not going to arrive and finish at the same place as everybody else in the room. And so you're helping to guide them to go where, really to become the best learner that they can be. Unfortunately, since we now have more all this testing, that's kind of going away, and it's becoming kind of going back to this rote memorization stuff again. So, it's like the hemlines go up and go down and go up and go down, but it's really a shame, because I really feel like people, I feel like the very best teachers are not, there's a certain amount of information you have to impart. That's true. But really, the best thing that you want to do is to help each student become the best person that they can be. And they're not going to turn out the same way. We wouldn't want that, because otherwise the world would all be the same. And we need people to be all different kinds of people. So the person who is really the great mathematician needs to become that. And the one that's the artist needs to become that. And you need to help each student to try to figure out who they are and how to be the best person that they can be,
Thank you. Thank you. For me, I really look at this, like, I think you find your teachers. It's not that the teachers find you. I think there's so much things wrong with the education system. And when I look at, my own learning, I think it is mostly self-driven, and you just, people can put obstacles in front of you, or they can inspire you with their example. And it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can be a parent. It could be a book. Yulia talked about reading books. The best thing that the books can offer you is what can be. And then you have to become that. It's like, it's not going to make you that. Similarly, the teacher can't make you that, but it can give you that. And then when you look at it that way, the world is full of teachers. There's so many people who are good at so many things. Once you take the responsibility of saying, okay, I'm going to learn, okay, I want to learn, and I'm going to learn it in my own way, then suddenly the world is full of teachers, and you can get your pick. So, all right, let's go to the next one, Maritza. Anybody who wants to read, go ahead and type R. If you have not read before, you'll get a preference. Otherwise, we'll just rotate through everybody.
Right, so next up is friendship.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read it. Give me just a second. I'm going to bring it up here. If anybody else wants to read, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Okay. And a youth said, "Speak to us of friendship." And he answered, saying, Your friend is your needs answered. He's your field, which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. And he is your board and your fireside. For you come to him with your hunger and you seek him for peace. When your friend speaks his mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the I. And when he's silent, your heart ceases not to listen. Your heart ceases not to listen to his heart. For without words in friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unacclaimed. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love most in him may be clearer in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of its own mystery, us, not love, but a net cast forth, and only the unprofitable is caught. And let your best be for your friend. If you must know the ebb of your tide, let him know its flood also. For what is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? Seek him always with hours to live. For it is his to fill your need, but not your emptiness. And in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed. Thank you. Next up is Richard. Richard, go ahead.
And a youth said, speak to us of friendship. And he answered, saying, your friend is your needs answered. He is your field which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. And he is your board and your fireside. For you come to him with your hunger and you seek him for peace. When your friend speaks his mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the a or I. And when he is silent, your heart ceases not to listen to his heart. For without words, in friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unacclaimed. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love most in him may be clear in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of his own mystery is not love, but a net cast forth, and only the unprofitable is caught. And let your best be for your friend. If he must know the ebb of your tide, let him know its flood also. For what is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? Seek him always with hours to live. For it is in this his to fill your need, not your emptiness. And in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody who would like to comment, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. going to start with Yulia.
Hi, I have a question. What do people think is the difference between the deepening of the spirit and the disclosure of its own mystery? Because he says, let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of its own mystery is not love. I'm just curious
Question.
what you think.
Great question. What we'll do is I will take the question at the end. What I'll do is that I'll call on you to ask the question. Let people first react
Oh, sure,
to the
yeah.
whole of the poem. So we'll bring out different aspects of it, put it on the table, and then I'll call upon you. If I forget, Maritza, please remind me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is Richard. Richard, what did you get from this reading?
Well, what I got from it in terms of my own book and a gift from to myself and my wife from another couple, and the quote that they put in the book was the last part of this one. And in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. And it really, for us, spoke to the just that simple sort of bond of friendship that allows so much more to sort of free itself, both in the laughter and the sharing of whatever, because it was also a sharing of good and bad times, not always just perfect sort of connection. But the really neat part was the sweetness of friendship allows for the sharing of pleasures, and there's so much that can be come out of the language of pleasure to sort of accent what that means.
Wonderful.
So I was very glad to be able to read it, because I haven't seen it in the book for a long time.
I like the fact that that you're reading, that you're here reading something that is of great importance to you for a long period of time that you have not looked at recently. I mean, that's the great thing about great books. We're talking about teachers, we're talking about what you can learn from one another, and this is a great example of what Gibran can do. It's like it puts something in you and then it kind of percolates in you, without the book being present for decades, but it does percolate. And when you read it again, it's like an old friend.
Yeah.
Because he has become, those ideas have become part of you. And you are a different person thanks to that. And you recognize, you have the same kind of say, oh, that's my friend, So wonderful. Thank you. Folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to comment. Maritza.
The line that spoke to me is one of the very first ones. He says, your friend is your needs answered. And that really speaks to me. What it actually brings to mind is somebody who I considered for quite some time one of my very dearest and closest friends. And then we kind of, parted ways, but still he is remembered with, this good feeling. And so that just made me think of, he's a friend who must have been answering a need I had in that moment. And as the need went away, the friendship, changed and became less fierce, but never not lessened for the distance. And so that came to me as just ringing so very true. And then he, he goes further and makes it just this beautiful thing about friendship. And it does make one wonder, it's a great sounding board for whether or not we need to keep certain friends in our lives, because, if your friend is not you're bored and your fireside and you're not coming to them seeking peace, maybe you need to reconsider if that is truly a defined friend.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Marissa. Anybody else wants to comment? Allison.
It's funny because I had a conversation like this with one of my best friends just yesterday. And I told her that that I've realized I have 5 what I call ride or die friends who have been my friends for decades. And sometimes when I watch other people with their friendships that sort of come and go, I never realized just how phenomenally lucky that I am that I've got these 5 people in my life. And when I think about all the things we've gone through over the years and how there are times when they've been there for me and I've been there for them. And, so many things can come and go and change, but, a good friend is phenomenally priceless. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So now let's go to Yulia's question. It's a great question. It says, and let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. That's one. And the next one, for love that seeks aught means anything but. So it's like for love that does not seek anything but disclosure of its own mystery is not love, but a net cast forth, and only the unprofitable is caught. So what's the difference between these two? If anybody wants to answer, you're welcome to do that. Let me take a stab at it. So let me see where it is. Okay. And let there be no purpose in friendship, save the deepening of the spirit. I see many things going on here at the same time. So firstly, this is the kind of friendship that Aristotle talks about 3 kinds of friendships: friendship of pleasure, friendship of utility, and friendship of character. What he's talking about is friendship of character. And that is very stable because a person says, this is who you are. We read Seneca on friendship, and he was saying, be careful about choosing your friends. Judge your friend before you make him a friend. Judge their character, and by character, it means what is universal about them? What is it, your idea of ideal, your idea of what is a good character? To what extent do they have it? And if they are committed to the same ideal as you and live that, then you have a basis of friendship, which is very stable. And then Seneca said, once you do that, then be very open with them, because what is there to hide? Because expressing yourself fully, even if you're wrong, or even when they are wrong, you're both committed to the truth. So you will learn from each other, deepening your understanding, deepening your character. So the first point is that this is a friendship based on character. And this is really, really beautiful. It's like deepening of the spirit. So when you are, there is this psychologist called Carl Rogers, and he has the idea of authentic relating. See, what happens is that, and this is both like Carl Jung and Carl Rogers deal with this idea. He says they both think that human beings at their core are these amazing beings. And then they ask the question, why is it then that most people are so miserable and unhappy? And their answer is that there are two problems. One is that most people have these set of self-defeating ideas, false ideas that are actually undercutting their core magnificence. And then they're afraid of the world and other people. So they are wearing these giant shields. So these are magnificent beings with these undercutting ideas operating inside them, with these giant shields banging against one another. What is the solution? What Carl Rogers says is authentic relating. When you actually like the core of the person and you're interacting with each other with that, what happens is that ideas that are undercutting you, you realize that the other person doesn't have them. And that allows you to actually lose some of that and let the core goodness in you shine forth. It also dissolves the shield that you're wearing with other people. So that allows you to kind of express your spirit in the world more, thus deepening the spirit. Now, if your sole purpose is to have a one-way dialogue, you want to reveal your mystery one way. The core thing here is the point that Richard brought up about dialogue. Friendship is it's both ways. It is authentic relating. You are actually seeing the other person. You are genuinely interested in the other person. So it is not that you are simply trying to send things one way to them. And that is going to cause, that's not friendship. That is not what is being achieved. It's not going to deepen your spirit. You're just going to repeat all your wrong ideas and you're going to maintain the shield because you're not letting anything in. You're just trying to put things out. So it is that authentic relating that he's talking about in so many beautiful ways. You know, his language is just incredible, and he will show it to you at the, you know, the fireside and the board and the pleasures and this and that. These are all various ways of saying, actually engage with people, who they are, in a very open way. So it's the same ideal that Seneca is talking about, by the way. And it's both based on character. And that's what distinguishes it from most modern notions of friendship. So that's what I would say. Next up is going to be Nico, followed by Oscar. Nico.
Yeah, I think I had to really read this over and over again to get a deeper meaning of it, and even looked up some of the words. But the saying starts, and let there be no purpose in friendship save. So no, there's no purpose to friendship except the deepening of the spirit, right? And the next one is for love that seeks aught meaning anything at all. So for love that seeks anything at all but the disclosure of its own mystery is not love. So a love that seeks anything at all except for the disclosure of its own mystery is not love, but a net cast forth. And this net will only catch anything that's unprofitable. So I think what this is pointing to is that there is no, when you're friends with someone, it's like you're not trying to profit off of that in any way. There's no sense of you trying to get something out of it. The only thing you're trying to get is this deepening of the spirit. When I think of deepening of the spirit, it's like I have this friend, like we've been friends for over 10 years, and like we just shoot the shit. Like there's nothing I'm trying to get out of her. There's nothing she's trying to get out of me. It's just like I just feels really good to talk to her. And that's like how I relate to this deepening of the spirit. And then for love that seeks anything at all. So if it's seeking anything at all except the disclosure of its own mystery, disclosure meaning the revealing of its own mystery, love revealing it's mystery, love revealing itself, then that's not love. That's and when this love casts a net, it's only going to catch anything that's unprofitable, and only the unprofitable is caught. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Excellent. Nico, thank you for the correction. Thank you for the correction, because I made a mistake reading the word ought, because I'm not used to the word. And so the point that I was making about the one-way point, it is not the point that is being made. You're absolutely right. The point that is being made here is that revealing, and this is revealing both ways, actually. This is, you're saying you're actually the idea of authentic relating. So you are actually revealing yourself, just like your friend is doing the same thing. And you're not seeking anything other than that. You're seeking nothing other than a dialogue between your spirits, from the deepest of you to the deepest of the other person. Like, you know, in Bhagavad Gita, we use namaste. It's like the God in me greets the God in you. It's like the core of me is greeting the core of you. And if you're seeking something other than that, then it is a net cast forth, and only the unprofitable is caught. So thank you so much, Nico. Appreciate the correction. Thanks. Next up is Oscar.
Yes, good evening, everyone. All right, so let me see if I can put this together. Where it says, let there be no purpose in friendship, save the deepening of the spirit. So my interpretation of that is, usually when we pick friends that have similarities. So what I'm understanding from that is, by basically your friend is a reflection of you. So by understanding your friends, you understand your nature, your own spirit. So that's what I'm understanding from, the deepening of the spirit. I guess is your own spirit, like you understand yourself more by getting to know your friend, which is actually you, but it's a reflection of you, so to speak. I mean, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, this is so interesting, because there's so many issues here. Like, I mean, one issue, I think deepening of spirit, clearly that is the standard. Now, question is, what is it that deepens your spirit? And for me, it is both, like the similarities and differences. Like, the thing is that there has to be this very deep similarity in some form. And then even the differences deepen your spirit on that base, because it's like expanding yourself a little bit in areas that you're not particularly strong. It's like, there is a kind of, so there is a commonality, which is the base, and then there is some difference on the top of it. So that structure. So wonderful. Thank you. Next up is going to be Yulia, followed by Maritza. Yulia.
Hi, Nico. Thank you very much for clearing that up for me, because it seemed to me like deepening of the spirit and disclosure of its own mystery is the same thing. So I was very confused. That's because I confused ought for not.
Yulia,
So,
I made
yeah.
the exact same mistake as you. And thank you, Nico, again for pointing it out. But then it's the same, right? I mean, now it is clear, right, Yulia, that it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's like the value is deepening of the spirit and disclosure
and
of
disclosing its own mystery.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, guys.
Wonderful. Next up is Maritza.
Now I'm uncertain how to proceed. Perhaps I was reading it incorrectly as well. So are we saying that when it says for love that seeks ought, but the disclosure, it's saying nothing but?
Yes.
Okay. No, then I did understand. Okay. So, I was thinking that
No. Sorry. Anything
Wait.
at all, but. So
yes, okay. Then okay, I have the correct phraseology firmly in hand. So what I was envisioning here, that it's the idea of shiny pretty. I make the joke sometimes, I may be doing something like very deep, very serious, and then something shiny caught my eye and I turned that way. And the deep thought was gone. I view these two passages as the admonition that we don't get caught up in something that we're perceiving to be a friendship, but in actuality is just something shiny and pretty that you enjoy having around. And I think we've all at some point found ourselves to have this kind of a relationship. And it makes me think of, the idea of, and I love, I think Oscar just said it, in any relationship, particularly, friendship, we do seek to hang out more with those who in whom we see our values reflected in them. And as such, those are the people we want to align ourselves with. And I think seeing that is what is meant here when we're saying, we're seeking a deepening of the spirit, because when you see your value in someone else and you keep hanging with them, it kind of tunes you so that you strive to continue being true to your values as you see it in those around you, and you're seeking to be better at it and to walk forward movement. And then the opposite exists, in that you may see somebody who's saying all the right things, but they're not actually aligned with your values. So if you only stay looking at the shiny pretty on top, you miss that there's no alignment here. And I think that for us, sometimes that shiny pretty, we want to like keep seeking it and picking at it, because we all like a puzzle or a mystery. And what I'm hearing here is that that's hollow. That path is not, you're not seeing the reflection of your values. So it's not actually fulfilling you. And so there's no deepening of your spirit happening. And so it's a caution that if you find yourself in that situation, then you're not actually in a true friendship. And I think that most of us who've been on walking this earth for a few decades, we may have experienced that just absolute deception or even heartbreak at realizing that what we thought was a friendship was in fact something shiny and pretty. So that's how I kind of interpret that passage there.
thank you, Maritza. Great discussion, great question by Yulia. Let's go to the next one.
Quite appropriately, the next one is speaking.
Speaking, okay. All right, who would like to read? Go ahead and type R if you'd like to read. Jeannie, go ahead. Jeannie, can you go ahead? You need to unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I was muted. And then a scholar said, "Speak of talking." And he answered saying, "You talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts. And when you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart, you live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murder. For thought is a bird of space that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly." There are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes, their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk and with oh, where am I? Oh, there are
Without.
those who have the truth and are without knowledge or forethought, reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. And the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the color is forgotten and the vessel is no more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ginny. Next up is Connie. Connie, go ahead.
And then the scholar said, "Speak of talking." And he answered, saying, "You talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts. And when you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart, you live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered, for thought is a bird of space that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings but cannot fly. There are those among you who seek the talkative through fear of being alone. The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk, just a minute, without knowledge or forethought, reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. And in the bosom of such of these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in a marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear, for his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the color is forgotten and the vessel is no more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Connie. Would love to have people's thoughts. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you would like to talk about talking. Allison first.
Yeah, I was thinking about the one line about trying to figure out what to the silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. I think the reason that some people don't like to be alone is because they have to confront their demons, and they have to, there's nobody, you can't escape your thoughts when you're alone. But sometimes I think that's actually really very necessary. Like if you bet you're going to make any big decisions, sometimes you just have to go and be alone to really think them through. And, I think sometimes when you're talking a lot or you've got all these people around you all the time, it distracts you from yourself. And so sometimes you need that time alone, to really be able to think through what the right thing is to do in different situations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Next up is Nico. Nico, go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree with what Allison was saying. I think the first words that came to mind was the phrase idle talk. We have these people who just have idle talk to just pass time. And that's sort of like a diversion from having this time of solitude to really like reflect and dig deeper into their own lives. I think one thing that really spoke to me at the end is let the voice, hold on. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. So it's like, that makes me think like only say something if it's like something that's gonna bring meaning or like value or like something that's going to be more than just surface level talk. It's like your spirit moves your lips and directs your tongue. Like you're not just saying something like, I don't know, the latest gossip or celebrity news. It's like if you meet your friend, like I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess you don't always have to have like a deep talk with your friends, but I think this is talking about, you know, when you choose to speak, that you should be mindful of what you're going to say and not just, you know, say anything that comes to your mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Nico. Next up is going to be Richard, followed by Maritza. Richard.
I was quite struck by what Allison was just talking about, and this idea of sort of aloneness and, if you want, connectedness or togetherness. And for very often it's we treat them in a binary way. You're in one or the other. And I've just learned or have a new appreciation for the term ambivalence. And ambivalence is one that has always been treated negatively, in the sense that if you're in an ambivalent state, you're not supposed to stay there very long. You're supposed to go one way or the other, sort of pushing you into this binary attitude. And what I've been discovering is all the positive things about ambivalence. In other words, it's sort of like a safe place, another place you can go to. And and I was thinking that that's kind of what Allison was talking about, is that it really isn't sort of aloneness. It's a space where you can dialogue with yourself. You might be able to dialogue with others too, but you're in that place of mulling over something that might be very important in your life. Do you go this way or that way? And so the positive side of being in between, and to be alone with that back and forthness, and you don't have to be pushed off of it right away. You can dwell on it and mull it over, and again with yourself or with others. But it is that kind of third place, which I think many people think is a negative aloneness, and it may be a really rich aloneness as you work your way through something that's very important in your life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Next up is going to be Maritza, followed by Dina. Maritza.
So many points in this poem. The idea of just not being able to kind of sit still with ourselves makes me think of, we've spoken here together at various times about, on precision and brevity of one's speech when one is speaking. That came to mind here when he's talking about, if you're seeking the talkative through fear of being alone, now you find yourself in danger of, again, it's that, it makes me think of the shiny pretty again. It might not be substantive. It may just be, if they're constantly talking, are they in fact saying anything? And it might be that they're not. And then your fear is kind of eating up quality time where you could be, digging deeper, and you're kind of interacting with something more superficial and less meaningful. That was what came there in that line when he says, there are those among you who seek the talkative through the fear of being alone. Also, another line that was very striking to me was the line of, and there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. And in this one, I'm taken back to the poem on teachers and teaching. The idea of teaching not being something yet you're literally saying, or like, you're showing or you're doing, and in that way, you're teaching. It makes me think here that it's again, it's that idea of sometimes less is more, or less is preferred, because if we're constantly talking is the opposite of stillness or listening or hearing. And so maybe we really need to, and well, I guess he says it in the next line, because he says, in the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. I think it is in that silence where we have the space to hear things that are not being said, and maybe also for our inner self, as it were, to maybe learn a little and process in a way that is not possible if all we're doing is either seeking the talkative or being the talkative.
Thank you. Thank you, Maritza. Next up is Dina.
I was thinking, and this is piggybacking some on what everyone's been saying, but it made me think of talking, almost like the difference between it made me picture when people are thinking about what they want to say when they're listening to other people. And so then what they say next is like, it's almost like, where are you really coming from when you talk? Are you thinking about what you want to say, and it's all about that, and then you're saying things? And or are you being with it? And in being with it, you might be silent, and you might be, say something, but it's not with lots of words, or it might be. So when I was like when I was reading this, for thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly. It just was like, you could have a lot of words and it could literally go nowhere. Or you could have like that, there are those who have truth within them, and they tell it not in words. And there's something in the let the voice within your voice speak, not that one, sorry. Let the spirit in you move and direct your tongue. It's like, I keep thinking of, how are you being when you're talking? Are you doing it? And it's a doing versus I'm being with you. And then whether you talk or how you talk is actually communicates and lands for people so differently too. I don't know if I said that. I just did a whole lot of talking trying to express that.
Thank you. Dina, that was very good. I would like to comment on it, but let me go ahead and do that. And then we'll go to Oscar. So it's a very interesting structure of this. I'm looking at it, or what he's saying. Going to the last part. There are 3 parts. I'm going to the last part. Say, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of wine that is remembered. So this is the ideal that he's talking about. You speaking from the core of your being, and you're expressing that. That is the ideal of talking. It starts from the core of you and expresses itself naturally, appropriate to the person that you're speaking. Now, what are the preconditions of it? Most people can't do it. What are the preconditions of it? And that you can see in the second part. That there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. In the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. So it's the same principle of things, kind of the core residing, the core moving part residing in you. And only if you have that, then you have things that you can meaningfully say. And then we come to the first part. There are those amongst you who seek the talkative through the fear of being alone. Okay, so, and the entire first paragraph is basically people have an emptiness at the core of their being, and they're trying to fill it with words that are outside, and it can't be done. It's like the movement is from inside out. It is, it's the root. You're starting with the root, and then the sap is flowing, and through the branches, and the fruits are being produced. When you are speaking from the fear of being alone, why is there fear of being alone? Because of the emptiness at the core. And you're trying to cover it up with words, with things. So everything that he's saying in the first part is what happens when that part is missing. So it's a really, really beautiful structure. Next up is going to be Oscar, followed by Marco. Oscar.
Okay. So my interpretation is that words is like, so when someone speaks, they're giving their interpretation of what they see or where they are in life. But that's actually meaningless. What's meaningful is their action. So, the saying is action speaks louder than words. So that's, and I think this is also that line where it says that people seek out the talkative because they're afraid. I mean, I'll say something. I've been afraid for most of my life, making a big decision. I'm not even making a big decision, but actually performing the action. So I seek out the talkative ones, to talk it over. But in my heart, I know what I need to do. But I said I just don't do it. So again, I think words are okay, but the meaning comes in action. I think that's where it says that the truth is should not be displayed in words, but it's not displayed in words. I think what it's saying there is that it's displayed in their action. So
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. Next up is Marco.
Yeah, I was thinking like when you speak from the heart, having like a heart-to-heart conversation with someone. And I think that, that sort of surpasses, instead of talking materialistically or, on the surface, and that sort of transcends the body, it's sort of this this connection, this reverberation between two people is sort of like it sort of transcends the body and the mind, and it's sort of something like that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Marco. I want to connect it up with our discussion on Seneca. Seneca talks about repose and movement. And the same thing is applying here. He's saying repose means a sense of peace at the core of your being. And movement is what you're doing. Most people think these two things are contradictory. These are different from each other. What Seneca is saying, no. What you want is that you want the core, the peace at the core of your being and movement that comes from it. So it's the idea of let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue and do your actions, as as Oscar was pointing out, and this is all completely consistent with that. So it's like expression of the core, and in the bosom of such as these, the spirit dwells in rhythmic silence. So there is a silence, there is a repose, and there is an action. If there is only action without the silence, then it is what he calls diversion and pastime. So yeah, this is just beautiful. Thank you, folks. I really like the comments. This is really, really fascinating discussion. All right, let's go to the next one. Who would like to read? Go ahead and type a R. Go ahead. Somebody was saying something.
Nope, that was just me. I was just saying, it turns out we have time for time.
Yes, let's do that. And let's take our time. Okay. Okay, it's going to be Evanik first reading, followed by Yulia. Evanik, go ahead.
An astronomer said, Master, what of time? And he answered, you would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. You would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. Of time, you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch its flowing. Yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dream. And that which sings and contemplates in you is still dwelling within the boundaries of that first moment which scattered the stars in space. Who among you does not feel that his power to love is boundless, and yet who does not feel that very love, though boundless, encompassed within the center of his being, and moving not from love thought to love thought, nor from love deeds to other love deeds, and is not time even as love is undivided and paceless. But if you in your thought, you must measure time into seasons. Let each season encircle all the other seasons. And let today embrace the past with remembrance and the future with longing.
Thank you, Evanik. Next up is Yulia.
And an astronomer said, Master, what of time? And he answered, you would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. You would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. Of time you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch its flowing. Yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dream. And that which thinks and contemplates in you is still dwelling within the bounds of that first moment which scattered the stars into space. Who among you does not feel that his power to love is boundless? And yet who does not feel that very love, though boundless, encompassed within the center of his being, and moving not from love thought to love thought, nor from love deeds to other love deeds? And is not time even as love is, undivided and paceless? But if in your thought you must measure time into seasons, let each season encircle all the other seasons. and let today embrace the past with remembrance and the future with longing.
Wow, thank you. Folks, I really love the fact that we had so many different readers today, because each voice, I really like the poems being read, because each person brings their own character, their own appreciation of the poem, and that is just simply expressed through readings, and that's really, really precious. So thank you, folks. Really, I think that adds a lot of richness to this work. It's again the same principle of, it's like you can't, this is not written words, it is one soul passing on something to another, and it is properly done through a soul reading it in their own way. So thank you so much. This is a very deep topic, so would love to hear people's thoughts about time. What is he saying about time? And how is it different from common conceptions of time? Anything that you want to say about this? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to comment. Oscar.
Okay, I haven't gathered all my thoughts, but here we go. So where he says you would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. I think that has to do with the situation that you're in at the age that you're in. So that's my interpretation of that. So obviously, if you were placed in the same situation at 22 versus 42, it would be different.
Give me just a second. Maritza, can you handle moderating? I need to take a call.
Sorry, Oscar, please continue.
Okay, and so right after that, where it says of time, you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch it flowing. I think that has to do with what you invest your time in. Like, for example, let's just say a person invests their time in acquiring a college degree. So after acquiring the college degree, you're able to, watch what comes after that, or what has came after that now later on. So it's I don't know, that's what I'm getting so far.
Thank you. Thanks, Oscar. Next up, I have Evanik.
Yeah, when I was reading this poem, I think there's two like seemingly contradictory things, like time is limited and that there's things that are timeless. And I think time is limitless in that, like, when we're here and when we're gone, time is still going to be here. And yet time is a man-made construct. Like we tell time, 12-hour day, 24-hour day. That's a construct. Time just passes. We give it the structure. And I think what this poem about time is saying is that respect that, you as a person have a finite amount of time in this body on this earth. We all have this finite time, and to appreciate it and to like use it for love and use it to love people and to, just love life, right? Like just to love the beauty of life and appreciate time. Because with time, there is a maturity. With time, there is learning, hopefully. And with time, there is, a value in time passing, because then you learn and you appreciate life. But at the same time, it's timeless in that it'll go on long after we're gone. So those were my thoughts.
Thank you, Evanique. This, I imagine some of you are still gathering your thoughts. This is a very deep topic, right? I'll share some of my thoughts here, but please type an exclamation if you want to share your thoughts, if you've gathered them and you want to share with us. I would like to say on this is that I get the feeling that what we're being told is that it's again the idea of time is not it's not really a thing. We corral things, we use the concept of time to allow us a semblance of control over this vast thing we call life. And we attempt to put all these boundaries, and we attempt to corral our very selves into these like hours, these seasons, these minutes. I love the line where he says, yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dream. I just think that's such a beautiful and grounding way for us to remember that there is no time, that the time, it doesn't actually exist. One thing that I heard a long time ago that I think of every now and again is not quite this eloquent, but it was a similar statement where it said that, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday, and all as well. In other words, the idea of when you say now, it's already no longer now. Keep your mind around that. How crazy is it that we have a word for a sliver of existence that has expired even as we're breathing it out into existence? That's kind of mind bending. And that all of that is what came to mind to me reading this poem. It's like he's telling us that we use time to create all this perceived order, and then but it doesn't actually exist. And I have to say, I was initially baffled, but then quite delighted to see that he used the concept of love to try to help us frame the idea of our construct of time. He says, and is not time even as love is, undivided and paceless? And if you stop and consider for a moment the manner in which we conceive time, we divide it perpetually and we set it on its paces all the time, right? So it's almost impossible to speak without invoking this concept. So I just love that we're reminded in this poem that it's as deep an emotional construct as is this construct we have of love. I'm Please, Yulia, go ahead.
I think you said what I was about to say, where Evanique was talking about how it's constructed, and you, Maritza, were saying that it's something that we use to corral ourselves through moments. But it seems like he's saying that that which sings and contemplates in you is still dwelling within the bounds of that first moment. So it's like time hasn't moved since the Big Bang. Just everything that has happened was already encompassed in that first moment. And likewise, love isn't moving anywhere. It doesn't move from thought to thought or deed to deed. It just is. So I think it's, yes, as you said, undivided. It's not going anywhere. It's already entirely present.
I love that. Thank you. Yes, I can definitely see that there in the tendrils of this poem. Yes, it's always there. It's not moving. That's kind of great. It's funny because we speak of, you know, if you're not moving, how do you know you're alive, right? So if we believe that to be true, and we also believe time not to be moving, kind of forces us to truly consider that time is in fact a construct. It's not, it's a made up thing. I mean, it's something that's so integral and intertwined and interwoven in the very fabric of our reality. But still, it's healthy to remember that, in fact, it's not something that is divided or pieced. Would anyone else like to comment on this concept? If you've wrapped your mind around it a little bit more, I feel like it's perhaps a little bit of a daunting topic, but please, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Point out another line here that I find to be really deep and puzzling at the same time. In the beginning, he says, you would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. That's interesting to think that it's both of those, and that it's only both of those because we're measuring it in that way. It's a interesting thought process to fall through. So would I want to give the floor to anyone who would like to have it. I don't actually want to go into the next poem here because we are almost out of time. So yeah, I invite you if anyone wants to make any more comments on this one. If not, we're getting towards the end here. We would start next week with On Good and Evil. Right, I see no more takers on comments. So if you will allow me to invite you to attend some of our other events that we have coming up here. Oh wait, I'm so sorry. Marco, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, just the part about where that which sings and contemplates in you still dwelling within the bounds of the first moment. So it just kind of reminds me of like like in the Gita, where sort of, you know, everyone is I forget the exact word, where you know, each person has creation in them, and you know, the same stuff that where life started and the universe started, and yeah, just that.
That's great. I like that. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to 30 more seconds. Anyone else? Please type an exclamation. I will cede the floor to you. Okay. So if not, let me share with you. Tomorrow is Comprehensivist Wednesdays here with us at 52 Living Ideas. Tomorrow is neuroscience with Sanjay. On Thursday, we have Stoic Thursdays. We're going to do Seneca's Moral Letters to Lucilius. We're doing letters 71 through 80 this Thursday. On Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going through the Asian philosophies. We're doing the Taoist text by Zhuangzi. We're currently doing chapter 6, The Great Teacher. and it's of Zhuangzi's Inner Chapters. And it's like 4 pages from page 41 to 45. And that's on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We don't have that date yet. So Yulia's asking about Daniel Kahneman. We're still choosing a date for that. It will be announced. So that was Saturday. Sunday we have Bucky Inspired Comprehensivity at 8 p.m. We've not yet announced the topic. On Monday is Poetry Mondays with me. This Monday we have Brian Patton as the featured poet, and we're going to do a call and response style of collaborative poetry for Monday. And then on Tuesday, you're back with us here for, we're going to go through the same format with Kahlil Gibran, and we'll be starting with his poem on good and evil. So that's the week here with 52 Living Ideas. Would anyone like to make a comment? How did you think the evening went? Anything you want to share with us?
Maritza,
Not.
it's I can't get my hand up. It's Connie. I don't see another hand. Yeah, you just did an extraordinary job. You're such a young lady and you're so remarkable. And I just appreciate you and of course your content, frankly, everyone. But kudos to you. Just wow, you work on your feet very quickly there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that you guys are being overly kind on the young part, but I will take it. Thank you. I just, spoiler, I look a little bit younger than I am. But thanks guys. I really enjoyed doing this and poetry in particular. So in the month of July, I'm super excited that we get 2 days of poetry here with 52 Living Ideas. So if you guys are into poetry, any of you, a little selfish, shameless plug here. I invite you to join me on Mondays. If you've never written a poem with strangers before, it's an amazing, magical thing. And I walk you through it, and it's delightful. And I've been doing it for about 1.5 years here with 52 Living Ideas, and it really is a magical thing. So I invite you to join us Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you find yourself intrigued or bored or curious. All right, folks, I think that's our Tuesday. So I bid you all a fantastic night. Any last comments before we go? All right, hearing nothing, I bid you good night. Bye,
Good
guys.
night. Bye.
Bye.